Hello world, Shelly here, and it's time for your Friday foundation fix, where you can get your fix of foundation reviews in between foundation fests. And today we're checking out from the drugstore the CoverGirl Plus Olay Simply Ageless 3-in-1 foundation. Retails for $10.49 for 1 fluid ounce of product, currently getting 4.3 out of 5 stars with nearly 1,000 reviews on CoverGirl's website. Comes in 12 different shades. I have the lightest shade 205 Ivory. I do want to point out that this is the new packaging, and this is the formula you want to make sure you're picking up if you are concerned about it being cruelty-free. The former packaging, and I believe potentially a former different formula, it was prior to when CoverGirl went cruelty-free, before they were certified cruelty-free. And I know that amongst the community there were questions about Olay not being cruelty-free, and therefore would that mean the Olay plus CoverGirl products were not cruelty-free? Well, CoverGirl says these are cruelty-free, and I do believe that that is why some of the Olay plus CoverGirl products were discontinued, because maybe they couldn't make those cruelty-free. There was no way to formulate them that way, but this is cruelty-free, and if you're concerned about that, look for this packaging, not the old packaging, because that I am not sure if that one is cruelty-free. So that is the deal. CoverGirl did recently, within this past year, get certified as cruelty-free. They're Leaping Bunny certified. This particular foundation is meant to instantly reduce wrinkles, even skin tone, and deliver firming hydration, moisturizes, improves tone. The ingredients include hyaluronic acid and vitamin C. So hyaluronic acid attracts moisture, holds it into the skin, assuming there is a source of moisture for it to pull from. Vitamin C is good for evening out skin tones, reducing hyperpigmentation. Now, of course, there's not going to be enough skincare in this makeup product to be your daily skincare, but I am never complaining about having extra skincare in my makeup. And I also want to point out, in the ingredients, in the top 3, this is a methicone, a silicone based, it's got dimethicone in it, it's a silicone based foundation, but in the top 3 ingredients, glycerin is one of them, and that's also a humectant. It attracts moisture, holds moisture into the skin, acts as a protective barrier to keep the moisture in your skin. So if you do good skincare prior to applying makeup like this, you should get a good result in retaining moisture throughout the day, which is really good for dry skin, which I have. So while I was checking out the ingredients, also, FYI, it does include added fragrance at the very end of the list, and it does have parabens for preservatives. So if you are avoiding parabens, then you should avoid this one as well. But I am not, so I'm going to try it. I also picked up the CoverGirl Simply Ageless Primer, which I have already applied. Let's take a look at this shade 205 Ivory swatched against a few others in my collection. Let's swatch. First up is today's foundation, the CoverGirl Plus Olay Simply Ageless 3-in-1 foundation in shade 205 Ivory. Next is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte in shade 101 Classic Ivory. Third up, I've got the Milani Conceal and Perfect in shade 00A. Fourth is the CoverGirl Vitalist Healthy Elixir in shade 710. And last up, I've got the CYO Life Proof in shade 101. I have already cleansed, moisturized, and sunscreened my face. I've got some sun damage I like to cover up. I've got deeper smile lines, forehead lines, large pores on the cheeks, some texture between my eyebrows, dry skin, leaning toward normal. We're getting there. As the weather improves and gets a little more humid out, I get a little bit better in my dryness of my skin. I have already primed. I used the CoverGirl Simply Ageless all over my face. This is a very nice consistency, lotion type of a primer. It's got some skincare in it, and I believe it's going to also help with the hydration factor with this foundation. Then I went in with the Revlon Pore Reducing Primer just on my pore areas and my chin, my forehead, and my texture between my brows. So that is just for smoothing and vanity purposes. Let's take a look at what we have. We do have a pump with this foundation. I love me a pump. Keeps my grubby paws out of the product, keeps air out of the product, and that way you have less likelihood of oxidation prior to the product reaching you. I'm starting out with a dampened Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. For a thickish kind of formula, this is blending out very easily with the sponge. The added fragrance definitely has a scent to it. I would describe it as somewhat fruity. It's not very strong, but it is noticeable. I can smell it, and I do not have a very sensitive nose. I'd say we're getting some evening out of redness with one pass and the sponge, but I can still see all of my sunspots poking through, so I would say pretty light coverage right off the bat with the sponge. Let's try the brush side. This blends out easily with the brush as well. I'd say the coverage is pretty similar to the sponge, maybe slightly fuller coverage with the brush. I think I like the finish with the brush a little bit better. I'd still say we are at pretty light coverage. I can still see some redness coming through on my nose. Even on the brush side, I can see some of my sunspots and some redness around my cheeks. My chin still has some redness coming through. Let's see if we can build this up just a little bit. I definitely like how this builds. It built up nicely. I'd say it's a solid medium coverage right now. The only thing I can see is my one little darkest sunspot poking through a little bit, so I'd say we're getting really nice medium coverage. And I feel like building it up also helped make it look a bit smoother on the textured side of my face. I still see a teeny tiny bit of redness on my chin. I'm just gonna see if I can get a little bit more coverage there. Let's zoom in and get a look here. My chin still has a little bit of pinkness coming through, which that's just my chin being mean. The area around my mouth looks pretty good considering how dry my skin has been in that area. Same with my nose. My nose has been notoriously uncooperative lately, and it looks pretty smooth for that. My cheeks look good. I think we're getting a really, really good smoothing of texture. There's some slight blurring of pores. I can still see a little bit of my pore area coming through on my cheeks, but this is not clinging to the texture between my eyebrows. It's not clinging anywhere on my forehead. I feel like overall it is a smoothing appearance. It is a like demi-matte kind of a finish. I feel like one thing about these, like, the foundation's targeted, they're probably targeted to even older than me. You know, they're probably targeted more to the 60-ish age group in terms of the wrinkle coverage. And have you seen some of the models they've been choosing? Some of the older women that they've been choosing as their models for the CoverGirl campaigns. Oh, may I be so blessed and gorgeous as I age, because they have just found some women that are like, I want to be like you. So anyway, I digress. I feel like that formula can tend to look a little bit more heavy than some of the more skin-like formulas because they're kind of taking on that role of filling deeper lines and smoothing them over. This foundation seems to have a tiny bit of that. It looks a little more heavy than a more skin-like foundation, if you want to use air quotes there. But it doesn't look heavy. It just looks heavier than that. It does not feel heavy. It does still feel a little bit tacky. I'm probably going to have to set this with powder. But overall, I like how we are looking to start out. Let's check the time. It is 1:31. Let's call 1:30 our check-in time. Let me put the rest of my face on and I will be right back. Okay, I had no trouble blending concealer into this foundation. I did end up setting it lightly with powder. I used the Coty Airspun, and it seemed to take fine to being set with powder. That did make the finish slightly more matte in a normal day-to-day situation, I would probably then go in with some dewy setting spray just to kind of meld the two together. I did not do that because I try not to go, unless I'm having a disastrous face, I try not to include setting spray in my reviews because I just want to see how it performs with the bare minimum of what I would normally do. And it took fine to powder. I wouldn't go so far as to say I had trouble blending powder products over this, but I feel like the blending doesn't look as nice as it could, and that could just be me having a bad blending day, or, the foundation stayed a bit tacky, and even since it's been set with powder, it's not tacky enough that like hair's gonna stick to my face or anything like that. It's not that level of tacky, but it's not completely set down, and I've done my whole face. It's been a good half hour, so that could be an issue. I don't know. I'll have to go back, and when I edit this, I will look and say, does it look oddly blended? Does blending look odd? I don't know. I felt like it just wasn't what I wanted it to be quite exactly. We'll see. So far so good. I would say everything's all right at this point. It does look a little bit heavy. It doesn't feel heavy, just looks a little heavy. It looks like makeup. It looks like I've got makeup on my skin, which I do. So that's not a complete, that's not a downfall necessarily for me. Because if the makeup looks good, then I'm okay with it. On the rest of my face, my eyes are the ColourPop Misunderstood Disney Villains eyeshadow palette. This is super cute. If you like, the little out there pops of color like I do. I have my concealer. I'm also filming the review of this. It's the Jeffree Star Magic Star Concealer. On my face is the Benefit Cheek Leaders palette. I used the Hoola Bronzer and the Hoola Bronzer. The Dandelion Blush and the Twinkle Highlight. This highlight is really unlike anything else I've got. It's this gold pink monstrosity of beautifulness. And my lip is the Wet n Wild lip liner, gel liner in Bear to Comment, topped with a little bit of the CoverGirl Melting Pout Glitz lipstick. This is in shade 400 Golden Girl. And mascara's CoverGirl Exhibitionist. Liquid liner is the CoverGirl Get In Line Active. And I think that's everything on my face. I will always link everything on my face down below in the description box in case you want to check that out. I will be back in a bit with a daylight check-in, and then I will come back at the end of the night and I'll give you guys my final thoughts. Beautiful sky tonight at the storage facility, getting my drill and doing the daylight check-in for the day. It's almost evening. It's about, 7:45 or so. So we're about 7 hours into this right now. I'd say color match is pretty good. I was thinking it might be just a smidge too light for me, but now that I see it out in daylight, I think the color is probably just fine. I have not gotten a good look up close yet today. Appears that blush, bronzer, highlight are still intact. I will say that I feel it's not the most comfortable formula. It just feels, I don't know, a little bit heavy or a little bit makeup-y. I can see I'm getting some drag lines here with my crow's feet, which doesn't usually happen unless my skin is getting dehydrated, so that might be an issue later on this evening, but there we are for color match. Pretty good, I think. Alright, I'll be back in a bit to wrap this one up. I'm about to sing Iron Maiden. It's 11:57. Can we say 3 minutes to midnight? The hand that threatens to... I don't even remember the words. Yeah, I was a metalhead as a child. 11:57, that makes us at just about the 10.5-hour mark. Let's take a look and see how this CoverGirl foundation held up. It is pretty much where a dead average wear foundation would be right about now. It's breaking up all over the place. I do want to make a correction from my daylight check-in. So I had mentioned that I was starting to see drag lines at that time, and I was thinking that that might mean my skin was getting dehydrated, because that's pretty much the only time that I really get my crow's feet showing. It's only there. I think it's the concealer drying out my under eyes. Of course, you can see what I'm wearing if you look in the down bar down below. I have a review of it, which I'm not sure is going to post before or after this, but I don't think the foundation is drying. I think it's the concealer. Because, you know, I take my concealer right around there and none of the rest of my face feels dry. And even when I smile, it's really not impacting this skin as much as it's impacting the sides of my eyes. So I'm going to take back the dehydration call. I think it really feels pretty doggone hydrating every place else. So if you have dry skin, I think this is just fine in terms of how it feels throughout the day. It feels a little heavier and it looks a little heavier than your typical lightweight makeup. You know, it's not a light like skin kind of a makeup. It feels like makeup. But aside from that, there are good skincare ingredients in it. I think it does look very nice throughout most of the day, particularly if you have deeper lines. Let's just zoom in and take a look. So at this point in the evening, I am losing coverage on my chin and around my nose. It's having a minor tendency to sort of clump up the way, you know, the sort of bunching that foundations do when they start to break apart and break down. But blush, bronzer, highlight are still fully intact. You know, I think they are perfectly intact as they were this morning. It's really not clinging to any texture between my eyebrows or anything like that. For the most part, it has degraded gracefully. I would say along motion lines, like around my mouth, is where it's a little bit bunched up, more so than gracefully. So it's not the most graceful, but it's not the worst in terms of it breaking down. I think it probably had a good 8 hours, and then after that it started to go downhill. So wear time, I would say, is pretty much average. To me, an average wear foundation is, 8 to 10 hours. A good wear is 10 to 12, and a really good long wear is 12 plus. So I'd say we're at about average wear. We're good hydration. I think it hasn't settled really at all into my smile lines, my forehead lines, a little tiny bit into my deepest chin line, but that's pretty much to be expected. And so we're dealing with a mixed bag. And so I'm going to say, if I had to give a grade to the CoverGirl Plus Olay Simply Ageless, I'm going to go C+. I think it's a little better than average. If I was feeling particularly generous today, I probably would bump it to a B-, as it's right on that fence. I'd call it a very high C+, because I think it wears well. I think it's not the most comfortable thing, but I also feel like I'm not yet at the point, like I can still get away with some foundations that were meant for younger skin. I'm not yet at the point where I need foundations that can cover deeper wrinkles. And I have a feeling that that's what this is geared toward. Therefore, I think if you have deeper lines than I've got, this might actually, like if I was in that situation, I feel like this would be perfectly acceptable to give me the smoothing of lines that I was looking for. So I think it's going to be definitely worth trying out. Make sure you get the new packaging, not the old packaging, if you are looking for this specific skincare formula and the cruelty-free factor. But I think a C+ on me could be a higher grade. I'm thinking on somebody with more trouble spots than I have, which actually says a good amount positive about I'm going to go B- because I'm going B-. I'm talking myself into it. You saw it happen right here. We're going to go B-. We're going to go B- because I think there's enough good here to address a larger audience. And since this is all about dry skin and maturing skin, it's addressing dry skin just fine. And I suspect it addresses more mature skin than mine even better than it addresses my skin. So there you have it. B- for the CoverGirl. This is my life. This is this is my whole life. My whole career is like this. This is what I do every single day. So that is your Friday foundation fix in the books. Let me know what foundations that you would like to see in the comments down below. Check my spreadsheet if you want to see if I've already taken a look at something. Geekoutofwater.com. Click the Foundation Fest link. I've got a ranked, sortable, searchable spreadsheet. Over 100 different foundation reviews on there. Scroll that thing to the side. There's a ton of data in that spreadsheet for you to search and to check out. And as always, I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup with me. Come back every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time for new videos. And I hope you all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.